Welcome back to this episode of This Dude Started Something. Today we have a very special guest. He is the former founder of Community Readiness at Tyler Technologies, helping out 500,000 incarcerated individuals re-enter society. Ladies and gentlemen, it is Silas Deane. Silas, how are you doing today?
Sounds like a walk-up intro. I love it. I feel like I need some hype music behind that.
We're gonna add it in post. Don't worry.
Yeah, add some John Cena stuff behind that. But yeah, happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Of course. Take us through kind of you work with reentry platforms. How did you get started or get passionate about that subject?
It's a very random story, but it's one that I've become super passionate about now that I've kind of gotten older and gotten involved in this. I went to Vanderbilt University for undergrad from Nashville, Tennessee. Played music my whole life. Started, playing in bands, DJing. Actually signed a music production deal after undergrad in Toronto, but unfortunately COVID hit right at that time. So I didn't have too much to do. I was like, man, that was my dream. That was worth all it. That's what I worked all this up for. Yeah, honestly, I was working for a label that was kind of like, it wasn't OVO, but it was working with OVO. So
wow, really?
Yeah, they were kind of a startup label, but they were kind of tied into that ecosystem. But unfortunately, they did not really get off the ground because COVID hit literally as I was filling out my visa. But that opened up a huge other opportunity for me and kind of completely changed my life. I started working for a government technology company based out of Nashville. Honestly, to get some beer money while I was just like figuring out what was next. And they sent me to a facility in Louisiana to install IT infrastructure in the jail. Like, how do you move their systems to the cloud? A lot of the government technology today is still done, on paper or on these antiquated systems and, black box computers with green text. And so I went down there to kind of learn that side of the business. And out of curiosity, I asked the sheriff who was there, I was like, can I get a list of resources that you all hand the inmates? I'm like, what do these people do? Where do they go? And he looked me in the eyes and laughed at me. And he's like, son, we don't have anything. We stick them on a bus and we ship them off to New Orleans. I was like, holy, that's I don't know if
they
I can
ship them
here,
to New Orleans from.
Yeah, you can swear. We'll just cut it out later. It don't matter.
Yeah.
Okay.
Wow.
Yeah, they take these individuals and they ship them off to New Orleans. And I was shocked by that. I was like, what do you mean you don't have anything? And essentially the answer was they just let them out and say, hey, we'll see you in a couple months. They expected them to come right back into the system. And statistically, they're right. 83% of these people do end up back into jail. And go right back on the streets and commit crimes and, go back into those same situations that led them there in the first place. So when I was in, I lost my job. I had nothing to do. I was like, wow, this is crazy. So I taught myself how to code. Code Academy, learning how to build, some Cold Steel videos on Udemy, if anybody else has done those. Ended up building a application to connect these incarcerated people to jobs and resources across the United States. Like, why don't they have anything to connect to the outside? And that ended up taking off. And through a lot of very lucky opportunities, we ended up being acquired by Tyler Technologies, which is a Fortune 500 company, the largest local government technology company in the country, and then grew that with them for over 3 years, to be one of the largest reentry softwares in the country, helping over 500,000 incarcerated people a year re-enter back into society to connect with resources and reduce their likelihood of going back into jail.
That's so crazy. I can't believe that. Why were they not doing anything different? Like, if it's not like we want there to be crime out on the street, like, why are we not helping these people? Because what else are they gonna do? They don't have money. They don't have a startup. So like, this makes perfect sense what you did.
Exactly. And 70% of them don't have a bank account. Over 50% of them don't have government ID. Once you go through that system, you're, marred as somebody who's been incarcerated. You don't you don't have those resources. Otherwise, you wouldn't probably be there in the first place. And
Exactly.
it's not that these, sheriffs or jailers are, mean people. Some of them are the most, passionate for this problem that I've ever seen. The problem is they just don't have any resources or tools to be able to do those things. I mean, every one of
Right.
their badges say on it, protect and serve. But so often they just focus on that first 50%, mostly because there is no opportunity to serve those people in their community. And so that's what we're really trying to build. And at the same time, too, not trying to excuse the, challenges that individual has or the crimes that they did commit, but rather create opportunities for them to take responsibility for their own lives and build that pipeline for their future, um, after that.
Yeah. So you led the community readiness at Tyler. Where's that at right now? Is that still owned by them and being operated by them? Has that been sold or exited? What's going on there?
Yeah, so I ran that. That was the product that I built in my basement. And now we grew it. We had a pretty large, well, it wasn't too large, but we had a really strong group underneath us, kind of grew our own division, a social impact division of Tyler Technologies, centered around this um, technology of community readiness. But I decided to go a different way with the company, and so did some other people on our team. So, to be honest, I'm not exactly sure where it stands, but I still really believe in the cause of what we're trying to do, and you know, the impact that it can have is, I think, amazing. And hopefully,
Yeah.
as these changes in government technology happen, we can see a lot more changes when it comes to reentry across the United States.
Yeah. So when you created um, the company, you were already out of school, correct?
Yeah, it was like right after I graduated from undergrad.
Okay.
Like I said, like I signed a deal 2019,
Hmm.
started this by 2020,
Wow. Okay. And
and then
then
we were
yeah,
acquired by 2021. It's a very fast, very
dang.
fast
Yeah.
Well, and
That's
how
pipeline.
did you learn to
impressive.
code? Like, who was helping you? Did you have help, like, with, coding it all? I mean, I know you said you learned on your own, but like, I have a friend that's a software engineer, and I mean, it's taken him 4 years just to do it in school, So,
Yeah.
like, would you say you're just a fast learner, or, I mean, did you have people helping you?
So I will say one, I never said it was a great looking application. I never said it
Okay.
was like, really robust or anything, but it did what it needed to do. And in the government technology space, like that's enough to, like I said, most of the stuff is done on paper. And so just by creating a couple of these connections, we're able to revolutionize this area of technology that has been left behind.
Yeah.
As we grew, as I was able to hire people who actually knew what they were doing and build a lot better technology on top of it. But honestly, it was a lot of really long nights. I am somebody who just gets obsessed over something, and if I get obsessed over something, I'll stay up all night just trying to learn it. And then, very fortunately, I had a roommate at the time who was just a kick-ass coder who would help me, you know, teach me like where I was making
Right.
mistakes. And this is before ChatGPT. I wish I had it now. I
Right.
could have cranked something out a lot
Right.
faster.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So is it you just learned enough to get the idea out there? And that's something really cool because it's like a lot of people want to help you out. I mean, like, that's such a great cause that there's bound to be people that want to get involved?
Definitely. And we got very fortunate. And this is something that I, express to other entrepreneurs, or if you all are interested in entrepreneurship, is I think there's often such a obsession over having the perfect product, but we were able to sell 20 jails honestly without even having a product. It was selling a vision. And I think so much of entrepreneurship is storytelling. And
Yeah.
we did have that product. We did know what we were doing eventually, but at the beginning, it was really like identifying a problem and really focusing on that why. You'd be obsessed with, what are the outcomes for these individuals and how can we increase the likelihood of them not going back to that jail. And I have kind of a
Hmm.
cool story around this where when we were just launching, I was, being like, man, how can I make money with this? There's no money in jails. What am I doing? Why me? Why do I even care about this? And I had this mentor whose name's Bernard Salandi. He was the jailer for Rikers Island and for, um, some other facilities across Tennessee. And he and I used to travel across the country together. I met him at the previous company I was working at. And he just looks at me in the eyes and he like puts his hand on my chest and he's like, son, if you're focused on the right things, you got nothing to worry about. And that's where we completely transitioned from going, how can I make money with this to how can we increase the impacts that we have on those individuals. And from there, it took off and we were able to have massive adoption overnight, essentially. And like I said, even within a year and a half, be approached by a Fortune 500 company to build an entire division for this massive company that's super slow moving. So
Dang,
Dang.
dude.
And whenever you're like, I guess, marketing this or selling it to these jails, who are you actually doing deals with? Is it like the governor or like, I don't know, like the warden or however that works? Like who actually is like, okay, yeah, we want to use your product or we're not ready. And yeah, like how does that work?
there's an old saying in this industry that like if you've been to one jail, you've only been to one jail because every single one of these are different. There's not
Mm.
there's not a path to do this because there is no synchronization between these systems. And I think that actually has some benefits from the way that that's set up, but also some negatives when it comes to sales. So I really had to learn kind of that process because I didn't know what I was doing. Um, to be honest, my first sale was I had a friend in high school whose dad was the sheriff of Nashville, Tennessee. I just called him on the phone. I'm like, dude, I built this thing. I think your dad's really going to like it. Can I get a meeting with him? And he's like, sure, man, whatever. He sets me up a meeting. I walk in there, not know what I'm doing. you know, I've never been arrested. I've never been a sheriff. I've never been a cop. None of my family's done either. And, basically telling this guy, hey, I know how to do your entire system better than what you're doing.
Yeah.
They're basically laughing me out, but he ended up, loving the vision of what we were building, ended up doing a big press release on installing this in his facility because what we were providing them was access to all of these nonprofits and social resources across the state that they previously didn't have. I got very lucky that he happened to be the sheriff of the National Association or the head of the National Association of Sheriffs that year. And that really spread the word very
Yeah.
quickly.
Oh yeah, I bet.
But I will say, like, there was a time where I was just getting in the car and driving to dozens of jails across the United States and talking to anybody in the staff who I possibly could. I'd try and find somebody who I knew who knew somebody and getting to, meet some staffer who's doing reentry coordination or doing, booking and just say, I got this thing that I think can really help you all. And, because it's such a topic that everybody wants to solve in this industry. And genuinely, I don't want to throw any of them under the bus. And in fact, they were the ones who adopted this the fastest, saying, hey, this actually gives us an opportunity to provide to those people. And there was a hunger for that within the jail staff and within the community with these community resources to provide that directly to those people. And they would talk about it and it spread like wildfire.
How did you protect your business? Like, it seems like it all kind of happened really fast. Did you have to get like a patent on your idea, or I don't really know how that works. I know like if you have a product that you can hold and is tangible, it's like you gotta get a patent or whatever. Is that the same for like a business idea that you had? How'd that work?
We had trademarks and copyrights on what we were doing.
Okay,
But to be honest, at the beginning, no, it was just like me driving around and saying, hey, I got something, I can help y'all.
just
And
winging
then,
it.
yeah, I mean, I was a solo guy. I didn't have anybody with me other
Well,
than,
that's
a couple
cool, dude.
advisors like Bernard and some of these other, and Dan Vandenbosch is another one who was a former FBI who would just drive around with me and be like, let's go talk to
No
people.
way. Wow, dude. So what were you
Yeah.
doing at the time to like keep yourself afloat, you know? Because I doubt that you were, I mean, no offense, but you probably weren't making too much money in the beginning. So
Yeah, definitely not.
did you have a job on the side, or what were you doing?
I was still working at that GovTech company
Okay,
on the side
I
while I
got you.
was doing this. And the acquisition is super unique. So we were, uh, it's actually all ties together. Kind of a crazy story, but it was during COVID. No one was in the office. Um, I was working out of just one of the offices in their office space because no one was allowed to work in there. So I was like, kind of just use one of them. They didn't care. I was going to the bathroom washing my hands, and there's another dude in there, and I was like, no one was in the office, so I'm like, what are you doing here? Where are y'all from? And he says Dallas, and I'm like, man, I actually used to DJ in Dallas all the time. Southern Methodist University would book me out to DJ. We'd like play these parties at these frat parties and sorority parties that they just pay way too much money for us to do. And I'm like, and he's like, man, my son's trying to learn how to DJ. Would you mind teaching? And I'm like, sure. Here's my card. Whatever. Be happy to teach him. Couple weeks go by. I jump on, teach his son how to use a Pioneer board, how to like pull tracks, how to make your mix, that kind of stuff. And then don't think much about it. Couple weeks go by after that. Turns out he's one of the main directors of Tyler Technologies there to acquire the company that I was working for at the time. So I was starting to scale with my product, and I heard that they were there. And I was like, I just picked up the phone. I'm like, dude, I got this thing. I think, again, this is all just like pick up the damn phone and call, or like move, or just take that chance.
Right. Take
and
a
I
shot.
called him, and I'm like, pitched him. I'm like, hey, I think this is really help with PR. This is the scale that we're going at. So they flew me out to Plano, and I was writing, Plano, Texas is where they're based out of. Yep. And I was like writing, this pitch deck on the plane, like trying to figure out what they care about. And then I stood there in front of a board of Fortune 500 executives at 22 years old. It was just like, I know how to solve reentry. Looked like an idiot. I'm sure I said some dumb things. But luckily it was right place, right time. And we ended up kind of being tacked on to that acquisition there. And then we're able to kind of grow our own thing on top of that. Very unique situation.
Oh, yeah. Dude, they're going to make a movie about you someday, man. That's a crazy story. That is crazy. You. And the DJ, man, dude, I love that. I'm like I don't know, kind of starting out DJing and stuff too, but I've always been into music as well. Like I went to Berkeley College of Music Online last year.
Oh, sick.
And so I love all that kind of stuff. It's cool that you got started that way, and then I mean, what it turned into.
I actually started at Belmont University. I don't know if you know it, in Nashville, big music college, and then I transferred to Vanderbilt for my actual degree, but when I graduated, but I started at Belmont University. So I started at, music school too, all the musician friends and all that. That's awesome.
Yeah. So do you still do stuff with music?
Unfortunately, not as much. I still got a bunch of guitars. I play them all the time, but fortunately, life has gotten a little more complicated, and not trying to pursue the music thing. I always think I'm going to go back to it. I got a whole vision of this like DJ character and storytelling thing that I want to do with that, but for the time being, that's on hold.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the music will always, it's just a nice thing to have, as a skill, because you can just go back to it, which
I'll say music opened up more doors than anything else. Like,
really,
everybody can relate to music.
Right.
And I actually think entrepreneurship is a lot like writing a song or writing an album. You're taking this chaos and you're weaving them together. And, for example, Jimi Hendrix didn't plan out every single note that he was going to play when he played Voodoo Child at Woodstock that changed, generations of guitarists. Rather, he felt it in that moment. And it was knowing kind of these rules of the game and knowing what creates a good guitar solo that was able to kind of piece together this solo that, really related to people. And I could practice that solo every single day, but it's never going to have the relational effect of that to you or to anybody else, because that was, his emotion. That's his story. That's
in the
his
moment.
why. Exactly. Yeah. And that's why I think entrepreneurship is really the same process. That product is a picture of me at a, version of who I was at that time that you kind of have to set off and release into the world, and tell that story. Except it's not auditory; it's something digital, for example.
Yeah. Wait, so I saw a video on your Instagram, and I didn't look at the date, but you were playing at the CMA Fest?
Yeah, one of my buddies was actually playing at it. Jack Stein, he played in a band that was there. And
that was him.
No, that was me. So he like jumped off stage and let me come up on stage and play a couple songs with him. So I did get to play at CMA Fest, but
that's great.
It was his band, but I got to play guitar.
Oh, sick, dude. Wait, so you just went out there on a whim. You had no idea you were going to do that.
No, he literally was just like, do you want to go up there? I'm like, hell yeah.
How'd you know what to play? You just felt it. You hit a Jimi Hendrix? That's crazy.
Oh, dude. They were like, Pride and Joy Stevie Ray Vaughan. I'm like, I haven't played that forever. Here we go.
No
And
way.
first couple notes I kind of messed up, but we got right back into it.
Wow, dude. How many people were there?
It wasn't the main stage of CMA Fest. It was one of the bars during CMA Fest. So
Okay.
I would say probably a couple hundred people, but not like crazy.
Well, still, that's awesome
Yeah,
story, man.
that's
Fun
insane.
time. I do miss those days. Kind of make me reminisce.
Yeah, I bet. But like I feel like you're on the right path because like you're like I was thinking about this earlier when you were telling me the story, like it all lined up perfect. And that's how I feel like you just kind of know like this is what you're supposed to be doing, you know.
Yeah, as you know, Steve Jobs famously said, I'm probably going to butcher the quote, but it's, you can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking back. And so you need to live as many experience as you possibly can. So when you have that time to look back, you'll see how all these different pieces connect.
Yeah.
And you never know how they're going to connect. I never thought DJing at sorority parties in Dallas, Texas was going to, lead to an acquisition of a reentry technology. You never could predict that. If you were to tell me in college, like, dude, you're gonna be working on solving criminal justice, I'd be like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
But I often think that it's because I haven't been in that system that it actually provides me a different lens to be able to look into it, and then surrounding myself with incredible experts like Anton Lucky, who was actually one of the leaders of the Dallas Bloods gang, spent 20 years of in prison and now is a speaker across the world, to Bernard, to tech people who are way better than me. Creating these networks around me has, as a CEO, you just need to take that in and be able to look at kind of an objective lens of what these things are.
Yeah. Oliver, you got some?
Dang. Well, speaking of memorable events that you've had, you gotta ring the opening bell at the stock exchange, right?
Yeah. That was also a random event.
How'd you get to do that?
One of my very good friends who I met in high school, um, she then, so I want kind of a random story. This is my life is a path of just like winging it and seeing where life takes me.
Dang.
I won the Duke of Edinburgh Award in high school from now King Charles. He actually flew into Nashville and gave me and a couple other people this award. He had a
What?
bunch of yeah.
Hold on. What?
Yeah, that
Oh,
was just another side quest that we were going on in high
that's
school.
crazy, bro.
What high school
Got
did
this
you go to?
it's Montgomery Bell Academy in Nashville, Tennessee.
Okay.
It actually, if you ever seen Dead Poets Society, have you all seen that movie?
I have not. My sister has.
Okay, well, it's based on our high school, actually. It's
Oh,
filmed in the
cool.
Northeast, but based on the high school in Nashville.
Dang.
Awesome school. Very blessed to be able to go to somewhere like that. But, was able to get that award, and all these like Miss Teen America people were there. And I ended up meeting Miss Massachusetts, and we stayed friends. And she actually just won. Her name's Christina Yanni, and if she happens to hear this, shout out to her. We're still good friends. But she just won Miss Universe Armenia.
Whoa.
And then, so she invited me to. She's now head of VIPs at Nasdaq. So if you ever look up anything at Nasdaq, she's kind of the face of Nasdaq. And I was in New York, and she's like, "Do you want to ring the stock exchange bell?" And I'm like, "I am not going to pass up that opportunity."
Oh,
We got to
that's
go and
sick,
like
dude.
watch the whole thing, see behind the scenes, meet a bunch of cool people, and
Oh,
do
yeah.
that. And wasn't even my company, but it's just foreshadowing. We'll be there. I want to be the
Oh,
first
yeah.
person to play guitar solo on the stock exchange floor. That's my goal.
Oh, do it,
That
dude.
would be pretty sick.
Would they allow that? That'd be pretty crazy.
I don't know.
Why not?
If
You
you make
know?
enough
Anyway.
money, I feel like they don't care.
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. It just seems like everything's like falling in place, and that's so like, yeah, like it's so true. Like you can't just plan everything. Some things are just gonna happen, and they're gonna lead to bigger and better things, and you just gotta focus and live in the now. And that's insane.
It goes back to improv. It goes back to music,
Yeah.
I think. Like, again, if you try and plan every note that you're going to play in a guitar solo, it's going to sound robotic. You're going to sound like, an AI thing. And that's why, these systems are coming out. But they don't relate to you. They're not relating to your soul, because it's actually like a picture of you that we relate to. And it's in that improvisation that kind of the beauty is really able to come out. And so I kind of play my life, or I live my life as, as if it's a improv solo, and see where things take me. And if I think it can, do good in the world, and if it, is great for, you know, my opportunities, then why not? It.
Yeah.
And I've got many more stories around that too. I'm currently working with Wharton on building a whole education app right now, and I just fell into that as well with the Dean of Innovation there. But
Dang.
again, I think so many times we can overplan that you miss what's actually right in front of you.
Yeah. Yeah, true. That's good advice. Yeah, it's interesting the different, I guess, mindsets that people have. Like sometimes I'll think, something that kind of keeps me motivated to do cool stuff is like when I get to the end of my life or when I die or whatever, I think there's gonna be like a highlight reel, and so I'll be like, oh yeah, this is gonna go in the highlight reel for sure. Like if I do something cool or whatever.
Yeah,
So like, yeah, man, that's
life's about those stories, and
oh
that's one
yeah.
thing that's kind of like made me really passionate about reentry and the space is the impact that we can see on just one person. I had
Hmm.
this guy who we talked to, who used our system. His name's Teron McKinley. He was in and out of jail his whole life. This guy grew up in the Bronx, in New York,
Hmm.
kind of a rough school. He told me one time he walked into the playground and there was a hooker who was dead on the playground. They would have condoms on the playground. They'd have drugs on the playground. And, this is just kind of the environment he grew up in. And his mom ended up moving him to Smyrna, Tennessee, which is like a small town outside of Nashville, very suburban. And so he had this kind of like aggressive mentality already, because they used to fight. It's just very different than
Hmm.
a suburban Tennessee neighborhood. And one time, I think he said he was like 13 or 14, he got in a fight and ended up punching this guy. And so the school sent some cops to pick him up and take him to the jail. He wasn't actually arrested. They're just kind of trying to scare him straight. But after that moment, he was branded as kind of like that kid, that aggressive kid. And he walked through this story with me about how, you know, that became a self-fulfilling prophecy as he continued on. And
Yeah.
he, ended up getting involved in the wrong groups. He started hanging out with people who were also branded that. He started telling himself he was that. And so it ended up kind of being this self-fulfilling prophecy of these challenges and these crimes that he ended up committing. Um, and then he was in and out about 3 or 4 times. And finally, one person was willing to give him a job in the warehouse. And it's a warehouse job, but he was telling me he was about 2 or 3 years out. And he was now manager of the warehouse. He said he had a great credit score. He's now married. He has a kid. But really, it was just one person was willing to give him a chance, and that changed generations for that family line. Like now, he's there for his kid. Now he's there for his wife, and that kid will have a dad who's there, which will have ripple effects for generations. And I think it's so cool to be able to, you know, and that's what keeps me up too. Is right what you said, Braden, is like laying on my deathbed and being able to say, this is a life worth living. And I can now look and be happy today to die and say, the impact that we're having is changing so many people's lives. And that's to me a life worth living.
Yeah. Is it weird to think that if you didn't start this, 500,000 people would their lives be ruined, or probably more because, like you said, it goes generations down. Like you've helped that many people, but you've helped a lot more than that because like they're having kids, generations. You know what I mean? They're getting married and stuff. Like that's just crazy to think about. Is it weird? Does that ever hit you and you're like, dang, like I really did that?
It almost doesn't really seem real.
Uh
And
huh.
like, it's one of those things that like seems almost abstract until you get to speak with these people and meet with them. And most of those people will never know that I exist, and I'll never know that they exist. But, you know, hopefully they are, do great things in the world. And those are also the most likely people to go back into those facilities and those counties and those, places that they came from. And also, you know, help other people get out of that situation. And then it affects their family and affects their friends, and it full butterfly effect. So there's really
Hmm.
no way to comprehend what the impact of something like that has, but it drives me every day to do more and figure out more about this issue and how we can solve these problems, because the impact is so great.
Yeah.
Yeah. And these reentry companies that, you know, you've built and are continuing to build, are you actually or have you worked in like the actual planning process like for the reentry, or are you just filling the gap between the charities and nonprofits that are actually working with the incarcerated individuals and then pairing them with the jails closest to them?
Like the middleman.
My
Yeah.
software would be nothing without those people who are working in the jail and the nonprofits and organizations that are there. We're kind of that window in between. We're
Okay.
facilitating that ability for them to be able to do their jobs. And if you don't have a strong reentry person on your team, you know, we do have the ability for that to run itself. But hopefully what it's doing is not, you know, we don't want to eliminate jobs. In fact, what we want to do is empower those individuals to focus more on the outcomes of you and on the other people, because right now a lot of times it's one person in a jail of like 1,000 people managing the reentry on paper. You know, they're understaffed, they don't have the resources, they don't have the, you know, opportunities to be able to do the impact. And some of these are they're the most caring people about this issue because they're dedicating their lives to be in those facilities and to, you know, dedicate everything to that. And I'm not, I've never worked as a jail reentry coordinator, but I've met so many passionate people about this and had a bunch on my team who were able to kind of like walk through this process with me. And again, I just see it as I'm trying to provide them the opportunity and the environment to build those systems for themselves and build, like, how do we solve this problem? You know, we're not doing that reentry work,
Right.
but hopefully what we're doing is facilitating, you know, tons of change around those systems.
Yeah, and you're helping the government truly invest in like what they're going to see is the ROI is going to be crazy because you're really changing these people's lives. And like you said, 83% would probably end up going back. But by changing that, you create a better community and like a better society overall. And I think that they're really going to see that ROI in like obviously not money, but in, you know, the community itself.
There is a direct monetary investment too. Like, I've recently read something that for every $1 that the government spends on education for inmates, they receive
Oh,
$5
that's so
back.
true.
And then, not to mention, the government currently spends $1.2 trillion a year on this issue in direct and indirect costs. You know, if you're able to turn these individuals from taxpayers or from tax burdens into taxpayers, well, you can have so much more economic
Yeah,
value to
I didn't
your
even think about that.
community. And then, not to mention the downstream effects of now they're employed, so they're generating more revenue on top of that. That then is, you know, also having all these downstream effects for their families and their kids and everything else we just talked about. So no matter which way you look at it, this problem is messed up, and like, it is at everyone's best interest, regardless if you're Republican or Democrat or black or white or whatever. It doesn't matter. This problem affects every one of us. A shocking statistics that I also heard is, I don't know if you know this, but we have as many people in America who have a criminal record as a college degree. Yeah,
Really?
like, just let that sink in for a second. And the number of people who are affected by the criminal justice system is almost everybody to some extent. Maybe it's a friend, maybe it's a family, have been impacted by the law to some extent. Why are we not building these systems to, instead of reduce recidivism, build opportunities for, you know, rehabilitation?
Hmm.
That's what we're trying to do.
Yeah, it actually does, impact the economy a lot more than people think. Like you said, it
Yeah.
impacts everybody at that point. Um, I want to go back to you told a story about that kid that ended up getting stuck in the system and couldn't really help it. Are there any other stories that stick out to you as you've built this company and ran it?
Man, there's so many stories.
I bet.
One of the most impressive to me is a guy, I already mentioned him, but his name is Anton Lucky. This kid
Hmm.
was, I think, 13 when he actually started the Dallas Bloods gang. And everyone can look him up. He's got tons of stories on the New York Times and everything. He was actually the founder of the Dallas Bloods gang.
Oh man, is that
And
still a gang? Is that still going on?
uh, yeah, it is.
Oh man.
He's no longer involved in it. He's now a motivational speaker across the country. as an awesome charity that he started. He, you know, is really actually doing this work in the facilities,
Yeah.
and talking to these people. But when he was going in and out of the jails, they finally got him on something. He would never directly be tied to anything. You know, it was always somebody
Mhm.
else was transporting the drugs or doing these crimes. But when he got into jail, he told me he met this guy. And for the record, Anton did not use our system. He was before our time, but I've become very good friends with him.
Okay.
And he, um, you know, met this guy, this older man in prison, who's like, "Why are you? You know, you're a leader. You're naturally a leader. Why are you leading these people towards this thing when you could be leading
Mm.
them out of the system?" And he told me that that was kind of this light bulb moment for him of like, "Why am I doing this?" Well, honestly, a lot of it was just because of the environment that he was born into, and he didn't have any other opportunities. He's just as entrepreneurial as you all are or I am. He just,
Right. If you can start a
didn't have.
gang, you can start a business, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. Well, his dad was arrested when he was 2 years old for life. Um,
Oh, man,
and
that's terrible.
he was never able to even meet his dad because his dad was locked up. And then his dad before him was also locked up. And there's this
Really?
whole culture of that in
Mhm.
his community that he grew up in Dallas. Um, and he started speaking and presenting in these facilities, all these books that he was reading. He said he'd spend like, he said Malcolm X spent 12 hours a day reading, so I spent 13. So he would sit there and just read all day and got
Wow.
himself an education while he was incarcerated. Started speaking to these people who are incarcerated. And that ended up getting the attention of the guards. And they're like, wow, you're such a leader. You know, can we move you to a different block? This really difficult block of people who we don't want to deal with. And you speak to them and give them kind of a something to look forward to and something to like look up to because you have that street cred of being there, but
Mhm.
also we're telling this message that's changing the lives of these people who are incarcerated. And so they moved him to this really bad block of like the murderers, the leaders, and he was from a rival gang and he was super worried about getting in there. But he tells this story about how they just started talking and having conversations and started breaking down why they're thinking these ways, and ton of people from that block were able to get out of that system and get out of that thought process. And now it's the same thing. It's about one person giving someone an opportunity or changing that mindset or saying, I simply believe in you enough to be able to take chances in your life. And that's what we're doing too. And we're working with Anton now to help build those bridges and really kind of build that into a technology application to kind of build that cycle further, that flywheel effect for people who don't have those opportunities. But
Yeah.
yeah, I'm kind of on my soapbox a little bit, but
Oh, that's amazing though. Like he really went like behind enemy lines to just help these people out, bring everybody together. Um, man, yeah, can you imagine like how anxious you'd be if you once you made that decision that you want to switch up and go good, that you're in jail still, but you want to get out there and like put good back into the world. So it's just like, man, I don't know, that's pretty crazy.
I highly recommend anyone reading his book. He got a book that came out. He's got a ton of interviews, but he can tell a story way better than me. I'm butchering it, but there's so many of those stories. Everyone I
Yeah.
meet who's been successful after this incarceration cycle is one of the most inspiring people you met because of the adversity that they face in getting out of there. And a lot of them have no opportunity to be able to take any steps in their life. And so the fact that they're able to get out and, you know, I think shows the fact that so few people are able to break that shows how broken these cycles are.
Hmm.
And by building systems to facilitate that connection, to facilitate their opportunity, you know, hopefully you can find more people like that who are incarcerated and provide them that chance to become the next Anton or the next,
Yeah.
whoever the story is that's
Yeah.
inspiring to you.
Yeah. So, wait, Oliver, do you have something you say?
Yeah, or you can go if you want.
No, you go ahead.
All right. You found like such a great gap in the system where there was a much needed business and you filled it and it's worked out great. A lot of like young entrepreneurs think everything's been done. There's nothing left for me to do. There's nothing left for me to create. Um, but you're proof that like there that you can still find little things that need tweaking and they leave huge impacts. Do you think that there's any more out there? And do you have like anything in particular that you would like to change or think someone should look into changing?
That's fine.
There's so many systems that I think number one, what entrepreneurs need to do, or inspiring entrepreneurs need to do, is remove the ego from it. Yeah, those things like the Nike of the world, that's taken. That's hot. A lot of people are competing over that. The Tesla, all these things. We like these big shiny objects, and I guess in jails, inmates, no one thinks about that. Well, that actually offers an awesome opportunity to create something that me, some guy who never was incarcerated, never had family who was a cop or anything, was able to build a system that changed generations of people just because I didn't care about how it looked at the time, and it wasn't like this cool thing about helping people at the beginning. I was just like, that's that they're doing that. Why don't we do something different? Yeah, I was gonna be that DJ on a yacht partying and whatever, but you
You
kind of
probably
have
would have
to
been
put.
incarcerated at that point.
Yeah, I probably would have been one of them. But it's I think so many entrepreneurs need to really focus on why they're doing it and not what they're doing. I see so many people focus on, oh, it's AI. I need to build an AI app, or I want to do cars, or they focus on that what and totally forget that actually what drives the passion and vision is finding some why. And for me, it's you know helping individuals and providing one chance, and that's a whole story within itself, within my life and my family's life, that really resonated with me. And then building that product not to be an application on top of the system, but really to say, hey, let's solve this problem, let's solve this why. And then that business builds itself on top of it. I didn't know what I was doing in reentry. In fact, I just asked them what they wanted and what would work and how these systems would work. So I think there's so many opportunities for entrepreneurship. One thing that I'm working on building next, I'm going to be a little stealth mode about it, but is trying to inspire innovation in a sector that has not been really disrupted yet. It's currently in the process of being disrupted, but it's so barred from allowing other people to enter those systems that what we want to build is essentially an ecosystem that allows for innovation on top of it. So keep up to date. It's called Tuvita. I'm not going to go too into detail on what that is yet, but we'll be starting to expand in April. Already got about 150 partners on board, but trying to build the opportunity for other people to enter systems as well, kind of on our larger platform of what we're doing, and hopefully that will inspire a lot more innovation in some of these spaces. But I have to be a little cautious about what I say with that at the moment. But yeah, Tuvita, it's the number 2, and then VITA stands for Second Life, which you could dive into that what that means, but
Oh yeah.
I'm not going to give it away.
Oh yeah, I'm interested. I'll be keeping my eyes on that for sure.
April.
That's really cool. Have you ever thought about getting into politics?
I've been told that a few times. I think I can do way more good by being in the private sector.
Oh yeah, you're right.
I want to create change. Maybe one day if that path happens in the future, I'll be open to it, but I'm way more interested in starting businesses. And I just came out of a huge bureaucracy in the last company I was at, and bureaucracies don't really attract me that much. But I do think there's a lot of change that can happen in massive bureaucracies, especially the government. And fun fact, you asked me about my name at the beginning. My ancestor, his name is Silas Deane. If you do some research on him, he was
you related?
yeah.
Wait, to the American
that's
Revolution guy?
You know him?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we're looking up your name. That's the first thing that popped up.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm like technically Silas Deane the 17th or something like that.
Legendary.
That's insane.
But someone from him has been named Silas, since the American Revolution. He was the first ambassador to France, and actually lent his ships to the French to help us defeat the British, the Revolutionary War. So,
dang! Shout out to Grandpa, man.
Yeah,
the great
OG Silas up there.
Yeah. Dude, that's so cool.
That's insane. Yeah, that's so funny because we were talking about it and like not trying to get the facts wrong or anything because we kept getting like American Revolution stuff and that's insane that you're like related. But
Yeah,
wow.
That's
yeah, kind of
awesome.
throwback to American history there. But
Yeah.
so I do think politics is maybe in my blood a little bit from
Oh,
that. I
for
don't know,
sure.
but I'm
Yeah.
I'm more focused on creating impact and change, and I think I can do
Mhm.
much more of that by sitting outside of the political realm.
If you could change one thing about the criminal justice system, what would it be? And I know you kind of are changing, with the company and everything, but is there anything else that you would change?
Uh, I think, well, one, I don't think we should blame the people who are working these jobs. They're already understaffed. And I think there's a cultural thing around this as well. It's like those individuals are there every day working their butts off to actually keep all of us safe on the outside. And
Hmm.
being a jailer is a very thankless job. You literally get thrown at you every day. And so I think it starts on how do we inspire the people who are in the criminal justice system to focus on, who are working the criminal justice system, to have, the ability to create that change that they want to do as well. And so I think what my first answer is, I think all of us should not throw rocks at the actual system that exists. And then secondly, I think we need to modernize it. Again, this stuff is sticks and stones. It's put them away, throw away the key, and then see it again in a couple months when you head out.
Hmm.
I think, technology could create a lot of impact in the criminal justice space, not just in the jails, but also downstream effects as well. And that's, some of the stuff that we're exploring, is how do you build an entire infrastructure around that? But I think there's so many problems with it. I think, yeah, my focus is on the when you're being released from jail. So I don't have as much insight on the actual incarceration process itself or being booked or tried or a lot of the injustices that happen there. But really on when we're talking about the jail, when we're talking about release, I think there's a lot of technology that can change in empowering the lives of those people, that I hope we can provide.
Yeah, it's a good take. I want to know what's next. You know, I mean, this could be a good transition into, wrapping it up. I just want to know what's next for. I mean, I know you already said Tu Vita as well, but I don't know, any personal goals or anything that you got going on in the future that you'd like to share?
Um, so I'm currently getting my master's at University of Pennsylvania, and I've
Okay,
been
yeah.
working with some amazing professors such as the Dean of Innovation, and have a team of researchers here at Penn now who are working with me on solving some of these problems from a mathematical and research standpoint. Um, you know, my focus is on how do you create the biggest impact and help
Hmm.
the help people who are forgotten. And personally, I'm kind of all in on that. I'm very much like I said, I get obsessed with stuff and I want to build solutions. And so I think, what's in the future? We got to be a little stealth mode about it at the moment, but you know, I think big changes will happen and can happen, and I think they're going to happen soon. And I hope to be at the forefront of those things to inspire entrepreneurs to be able to enter sectors that have previously been walled off to, um, build opportunities for people who are forgotten and increase government efficiency along the way. Um, so there's a lot of stuff that I'm working on. um,
Yeah.
but very grateful to be surrounded by a lot of cool people at the moment.
Yeah, that's cool. Hmm.
And I think you're a great example that like, for-profit businesses, they don't have to be the bad guy. So many people in our society think that like, oh, you're making money, like, oh, that's not good. There's some great areas that you've found right here where you're creating amazing change and you're also, you know, making money too. Like you don't have to be a nonprofit to create change.
For
Um,
sure. Actually, I think the profit incentive can create some of the most change.
yes,
Um, but and in my opinion, I think our generation is one of the first ones to really realize this. Is so long in the past has been you make money or you do good. Well, that leads a huge thing in the middle of making money and doing good. You
right.
just have to set up those incentives from the beginning of what those outcomes actually are. we never charged an inmate a single dollar for what we were doing. We did not want to charge them. We set that as a precedent from day one, is we will not charge these individuals access to this because we think it's a right for them to be able to find access to these things down the line. Now, that principle that we held ourselves led to opportunities that we never would have predicted when we set that principle. And so I think there's a lot of opportunity in solving problems rather than perpetuating them.
Yeah. So you talked about what the deal looks like with like a prison system. Um, what's it like when you approach a business and you're like, "Hey, do you guys want in on this?" I mean, like, because what's in it for them? Do you know what I'm trying to say? Like, I don't know if I worded that well, but like, what does that look like
Like,
when you approach a business or a company and you're like, want to get them involved? Do you know what I mean?
yeah, well, they have an incentive to get involved. A lot of these are nonprofits. A lot of these get paid through the work and good things that they do for the world. That's how they get
Mm-hmm.
more investment.
Okay.
Or if you're a job, there's a lot of tax credits, there's a lot of tax incentives, there's a lot of economic incentives to hire at-risk individuals, with which incarcerated people fall into that bucket. But we, I've not had any trouble solving that problem. It's really, they want this. They want, the
Yeah.
problem is they just don't have access to it.
Okay. Yeah.
And so, there is a lot of education that needs to happen of like, well, while they're inmates, like, are they going to cause risk in my firm? But we have that, we're building artificial intelligence data systems to be able to predict the likelihood of them being able to recidivate, or the chance of them acting out in certain ways in your job or in different systems across, that they would be going to post incarceration. So honestly, I've not found it too hard to, inspire companies to get involved, but rather building those bridges to what they want to be already want to be involved into.
Yeah. Well, that's good then. I'm glad to hear that. That's
Yeah.
cool. Cool, dude.
Yeah. Also apologize, it got dark on me. I was using some
Oh, it's all
natural
good.
light.
You got the
No
ring light
worries.
on now?
I don't have the ring light right now. That's my computer light. I had a ring light. It broke, so I do apologize for that.
Oh, no
You
problem,
probably
dude.
won't be able to use
Worries.
many of these clips at the
You
end.
probably won't get as many views now.
Yeah. Maybe use it
Dude,
for the beginning.
dude, has anybody ever told you kind of look like Josh Allen a little bit?
Shit,
That's
no,
good.
no one's told me that.
Nobody's told, dude, bro. You know who Josh Allen is, right?
Yeah, the football player.
Yeah,
I'll
dude.
take that. I know a lot of girls like him.
Oh, he's getting glazed in every post, man. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'll take that. Yeah.
yeah, man. I definitely see it a little bit.
Just wish I could throw a football like that.
Yeah, yeah, dude.
Although I'm in Philly right now, so
Yeah.
kind of been cheering for the Eagles. I've never been a football fan, but
Oh, okay.
go Birds, I guess now.
Oh, dang, that's tough because I'm in Kansas City, man, and
Yeah,
yeah,
we're
you
Oof.
guys
against today.
Not a good
blew
look.
us. Oh no, yeah, that was terrible.
Yeah.
Dang.
Sorry. Rip.
Yeah, man, that was bad. Oliver, you got anything else, or do you want to wrap it up?
We can wrap it up. Do you want to hit the outro?
Sure, yeah, I
Or
can hit the outro.
I mean, Silas, is there anything you want to say
Oh yeah.
before we end this? Anything you want to say to, I don't know, anyone out there that's watching, any maybe potential investors or just people curious, maybe even former incarcerated individuals?
Huh. If you're interested at all in this topic, please reach out to me. We're going to need a lot of help. We're trying to create a movement. We're not just trying to build a product. And, my email is silas@2vita.co. So silas@2vita.co. Or all my social media is Hey Silas. So feel free to message me on LinkedIn or Instagram or whatever. Would love to talk. Would love to hear your ideas on the system, and how we can create more impact for more people and hear your story. So yeah, please reach out to me. Don't be afraid. I'm a nice guy. I won't bite. And yeah, that's about it.
Cool, man.
Awesome.
All right, that was Silas Deane, everybody, 17th grandchild of the original Silas Deane. Thank you guys for listening. Also, shout out to True Classics. They sponsor us with.
Go cop a t-shirt.
Go cop a t-shirt and use our code. What's our code?
Well, it's in the link. Just use the link in bio.
Okay, use the link in bio. All right. See you guys. Thank you for listening.